And there it is. There it is. Ivan Demidov, rewriting the history books for a player of his age, how he's utilized, and the points he's putting up. 19 goals, 23 assists, 42 points in 50 games played. For those that don't, perhaps they're casuals, they get the surface level information on Ivan Demidov's season. Before we speculate on what we think he's going to bring to the Canadiens when he gets here, if you can quickly talk to me about why this 42 points in 50 games is a massive number, Marco.
It's the highest number of any player. Well, no, he's tied for the highest number of points for any player in the KHL under age 20 in the history of the league.
Right.
So just to be clear, there's only two other players that have, one that broke the record and one that was just shy of breaking the record. Unfortunately, had a respiratory disease last season. That would be Kirill Kaprizov, who owns the record, and Matvei Michkov, who came within a hair of breaking it last year.
Damn.
So that's pretty good company, in my opinion. And again, I think the difference is obviously he plays on ska. You could say that, there's the better teammates, for example, in certain situations. But if you compare the playing time of the other two players, Kaprizov at the time and Michkov, he's playing on average 4 minutes less a night. And it's only recently now that he started being used as a top-line player, ironically, shortly after the Montreal Canadiens made their trip to Russia.
Oh. So the 19 goals in 50 games, what type of league is the KHL? Would you say it's skewed to a defensive game? Is it skewed to a free-flowing offensive kind of style? How would you describe how they play in the KHL versus what we watch every night in the NHL?
Yeah, I would say it's less physical, to be completely honest with you. But one of the biggest issues in the past was, getting used to larger ice surfaces versus smaller ice surfaces. In recent years, the KHL has made a movement to have smaller ice surface. So, a lot of the teams in the KHL actually have NHL ice. So it makes it easier for that transition. So, for example, Demidov absolutely loves it. It gives him, that lack of time and space forces defensemen to get aggressive on him, and that's when he can beat them one-on-one. And I think that's one of the things I enjoy the most. Like if you listen to, for example, Bob Hartley, who was a former KHL coach, also former NHL coach, he's seen Demidov play, and his exact words were, "I've never seen someone beat someone one-on-one like he does." And so I don't think small ice is going to be an issue. Obviously, there's going to be a timing difference, and obviously from a tactical perspective, things are going to be different. But I'm not expecting the learning curve that Russians of the past had to go through when they got to the NHL. He plays a very mature game, he's able to play a physical game if need be. I mean, there's a couple of his plays where you actually do see him lay the body just to make the plays happen. And when it comes to 19 goals, how would you quantify that? I mean, it's a difficult, Matvei Michkov basically had the same number of goals. Right. Kirill Kaprizov had the same number of goals. I think that Kaprizov obviously already, but I think Michkov is a future 40, 50 goal scorer in the NHL. Do I think that Demidov will necessarily be a 50 goal scorer? No, but it definitely bodes well when you're 19 years old with that opportunity playing against goalies that, in my honest opinion, in some cases could be potential backups in the NHL. To putting up that kind of goal total is impressive to me. And the other thing to keep into consideration is when you look at the way that his goals are scored, they're not being scored in fluky ways. Like they are primarily driven by him.
Are they
in individual situations? And if not, his assists are very few secondary assists. So his primary impact on the play is, I think, what we need to take into consideration and not necessarily compare the two leagues. But, you can argue AHL, KHL, you can make the argument of which one is the second best league in the world. But in my opinion, the way he's playing and the matchups that he's getting, I think that this is the best possible developmental situation now. I mean, in the last month that he could possibly be in.
Well, and his work from in tight, like his hands are so fast, and they're dynamic. And it's the package, right? Like you talking the highlight reel goals, the maneuvering from in close, the vision, I mean, you see it all there at breakneck speed for a guy who it's for a variety of reasons doesn't get the reps he has earned to get for that organization. So that takes us to predicting the future with Ivan Demidov and the prospects of him with the Montreal Canadiens. And I hope he comes here. I hope he gets a cooler number than Lane Hudson at 48. But as someone pointed out to me, Hudson's so good, he'll make 48 cool. So with that being said, let's go crazy. Is
91.
Is Ivan Demidov's talent alone, from what you see, from what you believe you will see, can Ivan Demidov landing in Montreal, Quebec, Canada in 2025, 2026 be good enough to get the Canadiens into the playoffs next season, Marco?
If they make no other changes?
Well, I mean,
like, because by himself, no.
I think they need to make some changes, but
yeah, by himself, no. By himself, I don't believe that him alone will make them a playoff team. Okay. What I do believe, and I think the Canadiens are kind of already on this, is if the Canadiens are able to shore up the right side of their defense, then they're going to feel like they're in business. And I think that's the key here is like adding him as an offensive piece. To me, you're adding a top six winger right off the bat that has the potential to be a superstar, right? So like for all those NHL junkies out there that play EA, already top six with potential elite, like that's what I'm talking about here.
So who does he play with, like in your mind today? Who should he play with? If again, no changes to the top six. Doc is here, Laine is here, Newhook is here, Slav, Caulfield, Suzuki, all here, unchanged going next year.
I think you start him with Doc. My honest opinion.
Yeah,
you start him with Doc. You want because again, like the Slavkovsky has that physical element to him that really kind of helps the top line, and I just feel like eventually, like this is the thing, right? Like when we talk about lines are so interchangeable and they move around from time to time. So I think just to like start of seasons things, he just makes Alex Newhook drop down to the third line, and then you just have Laine, Doc, and Demidov for now. And I feel like that would go pretty well because I feel like Kirby Dach, when he's on his game, is actually quite good defensively at getting loose pucks and owning the center of the ice and distributing the puck. I think oftentimes what we see is either Patrick Laine is not falling from a speed perspective, or Alex Newhook simply does not have the chemistry to build off that, despite the two being good friends, which is funny. So I see a Demidov fitting in well there. What I will say, however, is if the Canadiens are able to go and get a top four right shot defenseman to really kind of shore up their back end and balance out that defense, be it via trade, be it the development of David Reinbacher, who's set to come back in the coming days, weeks, I think that would make them a playoff team. And I think more consistent goaltending is obviously going to already help them, because I think I think we can all agree here, without being disrespectful to the player, that if the Canadiens had started the season with a Jakob Dobes instead of Caden Primo, the Canadiens will probably be in a playoff situation right now. So if you look at that and you have the idea that, Lane Hudson, for example, is going to get better, that they're going to have Alex Carrier for the whole year, who's going to really be able to be a pillar on that second pair, I think that they would be in a good position to be competitive for a playoff spot, because I'm expecting, based on the cap going up, but the, free agent class not necessarily being insane, I'm not expecting teams to buy their way out of being mediocre this summer. I think I would have fully expected probably in 2026, for example. I think a lot of NHL players are just going to look at the dollar signs that are going to show up this summer for average players and think, wow, how much could I make as a star? But, this, to me, I feel like the Canadiens have as good as a shot as any. And the benefit I think that they have over a lot of the teams that are around them is they have the assets to go and make those moves, and an owner that's willing to spend that money.